There we go. There we go. All right. Just keep it in my hand and not put it in my pocket. Let's give a round of applause to Martha and Peter Wilson, Mike and Laura Beth Bester, Ola, Allison, Alexander and Francis Steele, Arthur and Linda Thompson. Keep going, I got more. Barbara McCall, Bill and Mary Davenport. Thank you. I will be thanking you in an hour or so when I finally go home and get to eat some of this soup. But I've enjoyed all of it. It's really been wonderful. And thanks to everybody who's made this Lenten series so good for your stomach as well as for whatever else you get out of it. And thank you to Melanie and to Rainey and Jeannie and for those who have put together the Taizé service that's been going on this Lenten season. Today is the final day for all of this because next Wednesday we'll be in the middle of Holy Week, and I hope you'll come out and join us for many or all of the options you have for Holy Week. I was just working on the newsletter that goes out tomorrow, reminding everyone that Holy Week is the most important week in the entire Christian calendar. And we kick that off this upcoming Sunday with Palm Sunday and the Sunday of the Passion. We have a 6 o'clock simple Eucharist on Holy Monday. Come and join me for that in the church. We have the Seder supper that'll be going on Tuesday, 6 o'clock. Still time to register for that, I believe. And there's ways for you to get registered for that. Then we have a wonderful meditation that the choir is working on, and you don't want to miss that. That's next Wednesday, so just keep this time on your calendar and show up for the choral meditation that will be happening in the church on Holy Wednesday. Then, of course, we're off to Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, the Easter Vigil, Easter egg hunting, all of that stuff, and then, of course, the big day, Easter Sunday. So all we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks has been a build-up to that, or at least I hope it has been. Today, we're going to wrap up our discussion on a Lenten sojourn through the sounds and landscapes of the blues. We've traveled through the Delta, we've been through the Appalachian Mountains. Last week, we somehow crossed over and made it to the Isle of Lewis in Scotland, and we discussed the idea of cuina, or keening, as originates out of funeral rituals and practices in Ireland. The point of all of that discussion was to give us a sense of where this deep music comes from, not only in the secular blues, blues are all secular, the sacred blues that comes out of the secular world, which we talked about the first couple of weeks, the blues of the Delta, the music, banjos and fiddle tunes, and ballads that come out of central and southern Appalachian Mountains, as well as other parts of the country. Last week we shifted into the mode of truly sacred blues that we hear in the music that comes out of all of these regions. And we look specifically at the music that comes out of, that really comes out of the European part of the world. And let's see if there we go. So, there we go, come on back one more, there we go. So, today our fifth and final meditation is going to be on the deep breath of the sacred blues in the desert. Because as much as that sound we talked about last week originates for those of us of European descent, Irish, Scottish, English, from the British Isles and from Ireland, I'm convinced that that deep sound is a religious sound that comes out of the breath of God. And so I decided to name this after the scripture passages we find in Exodus chapter 3, in which Moses has his experience at the burning bush. That everybody, I'm sure you remember that. And God sends him off to Egypt to free the Hebrew people. And Moses says, well, who in the world am I supposed to tell them is the God who sends me? And God gives him the name of God, which of course for those of Judaism is still a holy sacred word. And for the Orthodox Jews, you don't even say the word, much less write it out. But for us as Christians, we know that word is Yahweh, which translates as a verb, I am who I am, which is an action, a movement. And as I've said to you in my Sunday school class, it's very much connected, I believe, with the very breath of God. Yahweh is almost a sound of breathing that comes in and out. And when we talked about that in my Sunday school class several weeks back at the beginning of the Lenten season, we discussed its connection to the prologue of John. And in the beginning was the Word. And I tried to say to all of you that in the sense of Trinity, we have God, we have God's breath, which is the Holy Spirit, and we have the Word of God, which is Jesus, and within that is the active breath of Yahweh, breathing, exhaling, inhaling, giving us this whole experience of God. And of course, you could just talk to Kathy and Melanie in our choir, and you'll find out that one of the most important parts of being a singer is being able to breathe, being able to set and control your breath as it comes in and out. And so for me, that breath is really combined with the sense of music. And so I tie it into Exodus chapter 3, and then of course we look at John chapter 20, in which Jesus breathes on the disciples and says, receive the Holy Spirit. So all of this is your Lenten religious spiritual connection to the sound and music of the Lenten season that we've been going through, which is very intertwined with repentance, with temptation, with introspection, and with longing, which to me is what the Lenten season is all about. And so today we're going to finish up with an experience I had that I think will take the music that we thought about last week as being very much connected to the British Isles and to Ireland, and take it back even farther in our Christian past. And to get to the very distance in our Christian past, we have to get to the desert. And of course, a couple of images, man, it does not want you to see that second image, does it? Audrey, can you get us to that next frame? Aha! There we go. Not like it's the greatest painting of all time, but an image of Jesus in the desert. And remember, in the Bible, it talks about the wild beast in which he's surrounded by. That doesn't look much like a wild beast, does it? So I guess if you're a beast in the presence of Jesus, this is how you go. And of course, we also talked about the image of Jesus in the desert as being a part of the temptation. This is from the Brooklyn Museum of Art, and a more modern painting of Jesus in his temptation in the desert with a very different image of the devil offering Jesus bread made from stones. All of this is part of the temptation. And so I wanted to go back and talk about this music and my own experience in the desert, because some of you have your experiences in the desert. And for me, it was my trip to the Holy Land. And of course, I've grown up hearing the music I've been sharing with you. I mean, not the Delta Blues. I came into that when I got into college and began to make the connections of all this music from the southern United States that we're blessed with. But the music I grew up with was the sound from churches and the sound of folks singing in the mountains. And so I had it ingrained in my head. And I showed up and made this trek to the desert to visit the Holy Land, my pilgrimage to the most important site in Christianity. I thought I'd give you an image of the young me. I get to the point where I remember how young I once looked, and I don't look that young anymore. But part of my visit to the desert, of course, in Jerusalem, in the holy city of Jerusalem, traveling to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And one of my favorite memories of that trip, which was way back in 2005, I believe, so a good distance back now. But one of the things I'll never forget is going to Holy Sepulchre and entering through the roof. Have any of you been to the Holy Land? Anybody in here been to Jerusalem? You remember going into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and you can go the main entrance is not over the roof, but some reason we were walking the Stations of the Cross, and we came onto the roof of the Basilica, and we got introduced to a church I'd never really heard of before, and it was the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Tewedo, I think, is the correct pronunciation amongst the Ethiopians of their church. And I love the story because those of you who know Holy Sepulchre, which is the church that is placed upon the site of Jesus' crucifixion and his burial and his resurrection. This is the holy site that's been there for at least 1,500 years, a little bit longer than that. And it's divided up amongst the divisions in Christianity. The Roman Catholics own one section of it. The Greek Orthodox are in control of another. The Armenians own underneath where the Ethiopians are. The Coptic Church has a little bit. The Syrian Orthodox has one. They even gave the Church of England, the Anglicans, have a little old dusty room over to the side. We can go in there, and that's our claim. But they didn't give anything to the Ethiopians because there was a time where the Ethiopian church was under the jurisdiction of the Coptic Pope in Egypt. And so when all of this was coming together and being divided up, they didn't give the Ethiopians any spot within the church. So the Ethiopians have such a deep devotion to God they decided that was okay. They'd just sit up on the roof and build their own monastery. So they have a monastery on the roof of the Basilica of the Holy Sepulchre. And that's where I wound up. And as we traveled through, we got to visit a little bit of Ethiopian tradition and heritage. And this is just some photos from way back in the days before you took them on your phones. These actually were pictures. Remember those from cameras? I'm old enough to remember that. And I had to scan these in. But some wonderful images of Ethiopian church and its tradition. Here, this stick is, I wrote it down so I can remember it. Mkwemia. It's a prayer stick, and the Ethiopians use it to pray. They balance their chins on it right here. It has a nice little top section that looks like a cross, and it's what they use to stand and pray as long as possible. If they fall asleep, it'll hold them up a little bit. And so there's the image of that. I mean, the Ethiopian church, all I'll say about it is that it goes back nearly as far as the Armenian church, all the way back to the beginning of Jesus. And of course, the Ethiopians make their connection to the Queen of Sheba, who came in the story in 1 Kings to visit Solomon. And the Ethiopians believe that the Queen of Sheba was from Ethiopia. She came up, she met Solomon, she came back, bore a son to Solomon. That son went up to Israel to meet with Solomon, and Solomon gave him the Ark of the Covenant. And so I'm a Generation Xer, and so one of my heroes is Indiana Jones. And Indiana Jones has been searching for the Ark of the Covenant for a long time. He found it, right? It's in a wooden, box somewhere. The government has it in the Smithsonian Institution now. But the truth is that the Ethiopians claim to have it still. And all of this, and again, just in case you don't remember where Ethiopia is, here it is in the northeast part of Africa, just across from Yemen. You can see up here another picture of where it is in relation to the Holy Land, which is right in this place. And this long-winded story is simply to tell you about the experience I had when I got there, and I sat in to listen to some prayers from the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition. And the prayers I heard were something that I instantly recognized. And that's what I want to leave you with today. And then I'm going to play some music for you. But I want to end with this experience of the interconnection of sound, the breath of God that flows through all of us. And even though we tend to think, for the majority of us sitting in this room, probably 99% of us, that our tradition comes from those British Isles and from Ireland, the keening sound, the high lonesome sound of the mountains. When I was in the Holy Land and visiting with the Ethiopians, I got an experience that told me that sound within all of our Christian traditions and what we hear in the Lenten season is connected to all of us. And what I want to remind you of is the sounds we've heard, just briefly, so that you can pick up on this when we get to it. So I'm going to play you just a tiny bit of the Isle of Lewis and the singing, the chant, the lined out solemnity you heard on the Isle of Lewis. So bear with me. I want to play just a little bit of this for you. Singing of psalmody in Scottish Gaelic language. That, of course, came across to the United States, and you hear the same sound in the music today of the Old Regular Baptist in central Appalachia, and eastern Kentucky, and southern West Virginia, southwest Virginia. Just a tidbit of that so you can remember that sound. That was a little piece of a hymn called Jesus, Thou Art the Sinner's Friend, from the Old Regular Baptist. And last week, of course, we talked all about that Scotch-Irish connection. But I mentioned to you that there are African-American traditions in their churches that have a lined-out hymnody. And I thought I'd give you just a little taste of that. This is from the Blue Springs Missionary Baptist Association in Southwest Georgia, so just down the road. And this is a famous spiritual most of us know, and it's probably in our Lift Every Voice and Sing hymnal. A charge to keep I have, but this is the version of it in the lined out hymnody of the African American Missionary Baptist Church.
A lesson we can hear from Dr. Watts, and this short meter hymn, a charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never dying soul to save, and fitting for the sky, a charge.
A different sound, but very familiar, very similar to the sounds are on the Isle of Lewis, in the Central Appalachian Mountains, in the southern United States, and African American communities. So it seems to have a connection. And then when I was sitting up with the Ethiopian Orthodox monks, I began to hear a sound that reminded me of that. And when I got home and I looked it up, I read that the Ethiopians believed that Saint Bernard was given this music in Ethiopia in the 6th century, and that it is the music of heaven, according to Saint Bernard and to the Ethiopian tradition. And I want you to listen to it with that music in your head, from Scotland, from Central Appalachia, from Southwest Georgia, and see if you hear the same sound coming from an ancient church that goes all the way back to the 5th century. And in my mind, I'll leave my argument there, with where this music comes from and how deep it is in our tradition. But I'm going to bounce this tune up just a little bit, and I'm going to let you hear it here. Needless to say, when I was on the roof of the Holy Sepulchre and I heard the Ethiopian singing, I instantly heard that connection between the old regulars. I grew up here in eastern Kentucky, And then really all of this other music that I later discovered in the Isle of Lewis. And to me, I just want to leave you as we finish our Lenten series with that idea of the breath of God that moves through all of us, and the idea of the music of God somehow being contained within these sounds. And I would have had a hard time arguing that if all it was from the keening of the Irish, which is sad and mournful enough, but to hear that sound coming from Ethiopia, and to know that their claim is that music comes from the 5th or 6th century, and to know that their church claims connection all the way back to King Solomon and Judaism, it's an amazing idea of that idea of that sense of God's ruach, the Spirit of God that moves in the midst of us. And to me, it really is the final connection that I want to leave you with for the idea of blues in the season of Lent, is this idea that is connected to a music that's ancient, and a sound that goes all the way back, and a sound that really connects us with our ideas about the Lenten season. The desert, the wilderness, the repenting of sins, fasting, self-denial, introspection, facing temptation, longing for God. How do you put all of that Lenten season into the sound of music, the breath that's breathed in and out for 40 days and 40 nights? The blues. And I think the blues in and of itself has variations in every race and every variety of people and every religious tradition, but it's specifically tied into the Christian tradition. And we can claim that all the way back to the ancient church in Ethiopia. And if you hear that music, and hopefully I've been able to help you hear the sounds that are connected to that, and to me, that's where the Lent, the blues in our sojourn takes us to, is from here back to the desert, to the church, where Jesus and his temptation happened. So, that's the end of my story. Not the end of music, though. I thought I'd share with you a little bit of blues in the more of the tradition that I play a lot more of today, because I'd like to sing a bit more of with the old regulars and with the Ethiopians, but I'm thankful to have all of you to sing with, because I understand your language a little bit better. The Ethiopians singing Giez, which is an ancient language that only recently has the Ethiopian Orthodox Church gone into the modern day language of Ethiopia. Mostly it's been an ancient language. So I'm going to play you a couple of tunes. And I'm going to start with one that, well, my picture went away. I don't know what happened to it. I thought it'd come back. Thank you. Okay. Not that you didn't see that last time. I'm going to sing a song that's related to the Blessed Virgin Mary. I sing this song a whole lot during the Easter season, Christmas season. But I actually think it's more of a song related to the season of Lent and Holy Week. And it's a song written by Patty Griffith. Anybody know who Patty Griffith is? Hope you do. She's wonderful. And I got to hear her sing this in person not too long ago. And now I'm going to try to sing it for you. And it will not be nearly as good as hers. So, but you'll forgive me for that. And I think there's a whole lot of blues. Well, a whole lot of blues contained in this song. Hey, Lip. Know what it? Yeah, this one's not working. Pass it back to man, and I'll make sure I can play this too. I got a cheat sheet for this song because I don't want to mess it up. It's called Mary. Mary, you're covered in roses. You're covered in ashes. Covered in rain. You're covered in babies. Covered in slashes. Covered in the wilderness, you're covered in stains. You cast aside the sheet, you cast aside the shroud of another man. Serve the world proud. You breed another son, you lose another one. On some sunny day, and always you stay, Mary. Jesus said mother couldn't stay another day longer. Flies right by, leaves a kiss upon her face. While the angels are singing his praises in a blaze of glory, Mary stays behind and starts clean up the place. Oh, Mary, she moves behind me. She leaves her fingerprints everywhere. Every time the snow drifts, even when the sand shifts, when the night leaves, she's always there. Couldn't stay another day longer. Flies right by me, leaves a kiss upon her face. While the angels are singing his praises in a blaze of glory, Mary stays behind and starts cleaning up the place. Ooh, Mary, she's covered in roses. She's covered in ruin. She's covered in secrets. She's covered in treetops. She's covered in birds who can sing a million songs without any words. You cast aside the sheets. You cast aside the shroud of another man who served the world proud. You breed another son, and you lose another one. On some sunny day, and always you stay, Mary. Oh, Mary. I'll give you a couple of tunes that I think, I'm going to play the other first. So 3 tunes that are connected to a singer-songwriter I played for you, I think the first time we got together for the Lenten series. One of my favorites, Richard Thompson, an English folk revival guy from the 60s who's gone on to record and write a whole lot of really great songs. And in the same way that George Harrison or Cat Stevens did it, they're almost all in some way connected with his relationship with God, even though in the typical rock and roll folk style, you would exactly know that because of his connection with songs about love and loss. This one I've been playing for about 10 years, and Audrey's probably tired of hearing this song, but you'll let me play it anyway. It's a song called Bees Wing. I was 19 when I came to town. They called it the summer love. Burning babies, burning flags, the hawks against the doves. I took a job in the steam down on Cauldron Street, and I fell in love with a laundry girl who was working next to me. She was a rare thing, fine as a bee's wing, so fine a breath of wind might blow her away. She was a lost child, she was running wild. Said as long as there's no price on love, I stay. You wouldn't want me any other way. Brown hair zigzag around her face, a look of half surprise. Like a fox caught in the headlights, there was animal in her eye. She said, oh man, oh can't you see, I'm not the factory kind. If you don't get me out of here, I'll surely lose my mind. She was a rare thing, fine as a bee's wing, so fine that I might crush her where she lay. She was a lost child, she was running wild. Said as long as there's no press on love, I'll stay. You wouldn't want me any other way. We busk around the market towns, we pick through down in Kent, and we could take the lamps and pots and knives wherever we went. I said that we might settle down, get a few acres dug, fire burning in the hearth and babies on the rug. She said, oh man, you foolish man, that surely sounds like hell. You might be lord of half the world, you'll not own me as well. She was a rare thing, fine as a bee's wing, so fine a breath of wind might blow her away. She was a lost child, she was running wild. Said as long as there's no press on love, I'll stay. You wouldn't want me any other way. We were camping down the gully one time, the work was pretty good. She thought we shouldn't wait for the frost, and I thought maybe we should. And we were drinking more in those days, and tempers reached a pitch, and like a fool I let her run with the rambling edge. Well, the last I heard, she's sleeping rough down in the Derby beat. White horse in her hip pocket and a wolfhound at her feet. And they say she even married once a man named Romney Brown. But even a gypsy caravan was too much settling down. And they say the flower is fading now, hard weather and hard blues. But maybe that's just the price you pay for the change you refuse. She was a rare thing, fine as the bee's wing. I miss her more than ever words can say. If I could just taste all of the wildness now, if I could hold her in my arms today, I wouldn't want her any other way. Got just a couple more songs, and then if anybody's got any questions, I can hang around. I'll do one more Richard Thompson song. I gotta retune my guitar, so just we'll talk amongst ourselves. Kind of good. Again, another of his songs that last one was not necessarily a song about longing for God, though, you never know, change it up. It might be. This song was, every time something terrible happens in the world, this is the song I go to. And it's arguably that we had something terrible happen this week. Not arguably, it did happen. It continues to happen even here in Huntsville. If I don't want to play it, it's not in tune. This is a song he wrote called Beat the Retreat. And again, it's a song very much connected to his own discovery of God and his decision to put that at the beginning of his life. Though again, you can hear this song in a whole lot of different ways. Beat my retreat back home to you. I'll just play it and you can hear the words. Back home to you. I beat my retreat. Back home to you. Burning on my bridges. Burning on my bridges. Burning on my bridges. And I'm running back home, home to you. I'm trailing my colors back home to you. I'm trailing my colors back home to you. This world is filled with sadness. This world is filled with sadness. This world is filled with sadness. I'm running back home, home. I'm following the drum back home to you. sense in my leaving. No sense in the leaving. No sense in my leaving. So I'm running back home, home to you. See, if I had more guitars, I wouldn't have to change them. So, I tell my wife that, she doesn't believe me. Lip knows what I'm talking about. Well, I thought I would finish up with a few more upbeat songs. The blues doesn't always have to be that deep. And I figure now that I live in the state of Alabama, I should honor one of the great blues artists of the last century, Hank Williams. I always love it. Yeah, this is. Hey, I passed you on the street, and my heart fell at your feet. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. Somebody else stood by your side, and you're so satisfied. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. Well, picture from the past comes slowly stealing as I brushed your arm and stood so close to you. And suddenly I got that old time feeling. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. Need a fiddle solo. Well, it's hard to know another's lips have kissed you and held you just the way I used to do. Heaven only knows how much I miss you. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. And one last tune just to make it really fun. Another Hank Williams song. Definitely the blues. And very much tied to the story of the prodigal son. So just sing it with me if you want to sing it. Tunes guitar. Well, left my home out in the world round. Told my pappy I was stepping out and get the honky tonk. Well, the honky tonk. Hey, Lord, I got 'em. I got the honky tonk blues. Well, I went to the dance and I wore out my shoes. Woke up this morning wishing I could lose these drunken honky tonk blues. Well, the The city life's really got me down. I got the honky-tonk blues. Well, the honky-tonk blues. Hey, Lord, I'm suffering with these honky-tonk blues. I'm gonna tuck my worries underneath my arm, get on back to my pappy's farm and lose these honky-tonk blues. Yeah, the honky-tonk blues. Hey, Lord, I got 'em. I got the honky-tonk blues. Hey, Lord, I'm suffering with these honky-tonk blues. Thank you all. Thank you. Anybody have any questions or Hank Williams stories to tell me? Yes, Bob.
Everybody here's the name Hank Williams, but Lord knows I'm not a musician. I'm not musically inclined. But I have found this very interesting, and I've never heard of the phrase, a high lonesome sound.
Yeah.
That's the thread that lets me tie all this together.
Yeah.
And I thank you for telling us that.
Well, thank you. I like to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and of the high lonesome sound. That's, to me, they're interspersed and interconnected. And that high lonesome sound is describing the mountains, but to me, it's all linked with the blues, and it's all linked with the spirituals, and it's all linked with all this stuff. It's linked to Hank Williams, for that matter. And to me, this is the right time of year to talk about it. So thanks a lot. Yes.
I'm a nurse, and I used to work in the emergency room, and one of Hank Williams' players came into the emergency room all the time. He was a drug addict.
Yeah.
He'd come in there singing Hank Williams.
It's long after Hank had already transferred on out of the room, moved into what Leonard Cohen, the Tower of Song, way up above.
Everywhere.
That's right.
And we just gave him stuff.
Well,
That's what you did back then.
that's what you did back then, right?
Changed now.
Until they got in the back of a Cadillac and didn't get out. What happened to dear old Hank Williams? That's the blues, for sure. Yes, I didn't see you over there, Brian.
For those of us who grew up in a more Protestant background, seeing some of these signs, I just want to say thank you for taking me back to my grandparents' house.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I really just secretly wanted to play all this music for you so that you won't accuse me of being too Catholic when I start singing the Eucharistic prayer. The Lord be with you. We start singing that at Easter. But yeah, thank you, Brian. It's my roots, I really was like everybody else who grew up in Eastern Kentucky. I didn't want anything to do with it until I left for a while. And then I think I told you all the story. I was working for a newspaper, and I was the new reporter, and I got sent to every small town festival that they had in the Tri-County area of Knox, Whitley, and Laurel County, Kentucky. But I went down to the one in Whitley County in Williamsburg, Kentucky, and Ralph Stanley was playing. And when I heard his singing voice, it was like hearing my grandmother's and my I finally began to put the links together. I think I told y'all, I might have said this at the Sunday school class last, that I had a great professor who told me that real education isn't just about learning everything you can about one thing. It's about being able to connect the dots to everything else. And that was that helped me. Yeah. And when I was in seminary, my senior sermon at the General Seminary in New York City was about how I either wanted to be a rock star or a priest. So I feel like that you can be a little bit of both, as a priest, he says. So anyway. Any,
You have brought back so many memories with your singing
Yeah.
of my granddaddy with his battery-operated radio that he took the battery out of his old Ford truck and connected to the radio and
Yeah.
wired it to the screen. But that's all you listen to, beautiful gospel music.
yeah.
And it
Plenty of-
has brought back so many wonderful memories
Well, we're very blessed in the American South. There's such a rich flow of music from all sides of
And I have seen,
the point.
Hank Williams, and I have also seen Ernest Tubb in concert. So-
You saw Hank Williams?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Impressed. I was telling Shirley, one of my parishioners in Jacksonville gave me a picture of Roy Acuff with his signature on it, so that's as close as I'll ever get to the old greats of the Grand Ole Opry. Yeah. Anybody else? Well, folks, I've really enjoyed this, so thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing y'all during Holy Week coming up. I will. Keep singing the honky tonk blues.